Hello, this is Teresa. I'm back with another video tutorial for Dare to Be Artsy. I'm going to be creating a step out card, and I use my Cricut to cut out this pattern. However, during this video I will be showing you how to recreate this if you do not have an electronic cutter like the Cricut or Silhouette. So as you can see, I'm cutting this preformed card into the base with mountain and valley folds. And now that I have the base ready, all my trim pieces are ready to be glued onto it. And this is what it looks like when I have all of that together. And I'm using a bone folder to reinforce the folds onto the card. Now I'm going to be showing you how to create this from scratch, and I'm going to be using 2 pieces of cardstock to show you this process. So the first one will be cut to 9 inches by 7 inches, and this will form the base overall for the card. And what you'll see in a moment is this matches the base of the pre-cut card that I've already done. And then the lighter shade I'm going to be cutting at 1/2 inch smaller in each dimension. So it will be cut in 6.5 by 8.5 dimensions. And that will make it about 1/4 inch smaller on each edge. Now I'm going to be showing you how to score this. I'm going to score this at 1 inch, 2 inches, 3.5 inches, and then 5 inches. And as you can see, that piece of contrasting cardstock I have there is set at 3.5 inches to let me know not to score past that line, because that's the midway mark on this piece of paper. So every section is evenly cut. We have the 2-inch section, 1.5 section, and 1-inch section. And then I flip this over and I'm going to score it in half at the 4.25 inch or 4.5 inch mark. And now I'm ready to cut this. There's only one cut that has to happen, and it needs to be in the middle area, in between the part where the individual score lines on the right hand side begin. So I'm pointing to that first score line and the last score line right down there at the bottom. So I'm going to drag my blade just to cut out that middle section. And this is the perfect tool for doing something like that. I mean, you could use an X-Acto knife and a ruler if you don't have a trimmer like this. And so just like I showed in the beginning, I'm folding this card, doing a mountain and valley fold, and another mountain, another valley fold, and finally another mountain to get the basic shape in place. And then I'll begin working on the trim pieces that would go on that. So starting with my smaller piece of cardstock, I'm going to start by creating basically a score right in the middle of this piece. I'm not really scoring the dark blue section, which is 2 inches wide. I'm just scoring kind of in the middle, so I have a guideline for where I want to stop the cutting or scoring on either side. So that's at the 3.25 inch mark. Then I will be flipping it over, and I'm going to cut this at 1 3/4 inch to the middle, and then I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to cut at 3/4 inch to the 1 3/4 inch mark that's in the center. And then once I've done that, I can cut this piece based on the score lines to fit onto my base piece. So now I'll use my trimmer, and I'm going to position it where every score line is. I'm going to only cut it to that mid mark right there. And then I'll cut on the opposite side where I scored that at 3/4 inch. to the mid mark. And then I'm going to be cutting out that section in the middle. So I'm going to align that so that I can cut from the center cut to the one on the bottom. And then I'll have basically kind of a U shape here in the center. And then I want to cut that in half. So I'll have a couple of pieces. So I figure out where is the halfway point. I cut that in half. And then I have the perfectly L-shaped pieces to go in the corner. Now I did notice that it was cut a little bit too wide in the center, so I'm going to trim that down just about 1/8 of an inch on each piece. So I'm just going to cut 1/8 of an inch off and then trim that with a piece of scissors so it remains in a 90-degree angle, and I'll repeat that process on the top piece, cutting off about 1/8 of an inch and then taking my scissors and cutting that in. And now I have my 2 panels for the bigger panels. So now I'm showing you on screen where I'm going to cut this remaining piece that I cut out of the middle so that it fits within the dimensions of each one of the mountain and valley folds. And when I do that, then I will have recreated what I did using my Cricut machine. So if you have a Cricut machine and you want the file, I will include a link to that. Otherwise, you at least have a way to do this if you do not have an electronic cutting machine like the Cricut. So now I'm going to move on to putting the rest of the card together. I'm stamping the 2 main otter images out of the stamp set that I'm using today. I'm using Dare to Be Artsy black ink. It's a hybrid ink that is compatible with Copic markers, which is what I'm using today to color both the images. And now you can see the colored images, and I'm planning on placing them here in that middle mountain fold. I'm going to be using acetate to attach them, but before I do that, I'm adding a little bit of glue so I can glue them so that it looks like they're holding hands with each other. And once that's prepared, I'll work on attaching the acetate pieces. So I have a piece of acetate here. I'm cutting it roughly about 1/2 inch long. I cut that piece in half. So roughly it's about 2.5 to 3 inches overall. I'm using some 1/8 inch score tape, and I'm removing the backing so that I can attach both pieces of acetate. And now that that's in place, the way that I'm planning to do this is put one tail on the front side and one tail on the back side. So that's going to determine where I put the score tape adhesive on the acetate. So one piece of it will go on the back of the otter that's on the left-hand side, which is the female. And then another piece of it on the front piece of acetate for the male. And I had to start over because for some reason I didn't get it done right the first time. So now I'm going to remove the lining from the pieces of the score tape, and I'm going to carefully place it so that it's straddling that middle mountain, and that way when the card is standing up we won't have both of the figures going forward or backwards. It will just, they'll be pretty much standing up straight when you're looking at the card straight on. And now I've got an oval die cut piece of the paper that I use for the base of this card, and I'm using Versamark ink to stamp on the sentiment, which will be the "You are utterly irresistible." I'm going to put white embossing powder on that and heat set it. and then I will attach that to the right hand side of the card. So now here's the completed project. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video and will leave a thumbs up or comment to let me know what you think. Until next time, I dare you to get artsy.